All right, welcome to The Explainer. Now, you've probably always heard that tariffs mean higher prices, right? It's Econ 101. But what if, for the UK, the exact opposite is true? Today, we are diving into a huge debate happening right now inside the Bank of England that could have massive implications for your finances. The big question, could new US tariffs actually lower prices here? Yeah, I know, it sounds completely backwards, but this very counterintuitive idea has kicked off a major debate at the very heart of the UK's central bank. So let's get into it. So, where did this all come from? Well, this whole thing was ignited by a single, pretty surprising warning from a key decision maker at the Bank of England. You know, one of the people whose job it is to keep inflation under control. And that warning came from policymaker Swati Dhingra. Her argument, and it's a big one, is that new US tariffs would actually slow down UK inflation, not rev it up. I mean, that's a claim that flies in the face of what most economics textbooks will tell you. Okay, so how on earth could tariffs possibly lead to lower prices? Well, Dhingra and her allies on the committee, they're often called the Doves, they lay out a pretty clear chain of events. So, here's the logic. And you've got to get this part because it's key. For Dhingra, this isn't about the cost of imported goods going up. Nope, it's a demand-side story. The idea is that these tariffs act like a brake on the entire global economy. That slowdown in trade then hits UK exports, our own economic growth gets weaker, and that ultimately cools off the pressure on prices right here at home. See? It's a domino effect. And she's not just pulling this out of thin air. She's pointing to recent history, basically saying, hey, we've seen this movie before. Think about it, the Brexit vote, the US-China trade war back in 2018. She argues that both of those big trade shocks ultimately acted as a drag on the economy, hurting growth more than they pushed up prices. And she is definitely not a lone voice in the wilderness here. Another really important policymaker, Megan Green, has publicly come out and said pretty much the same thing. She agrees that the biggest threat from these tariffs isn't some crazy price spiral, but actually a big hit to our already sluggish economic growth. Okay, but that's just one side of the argument. And it's a powerful one, but not everyone on the committee is buying it. In fact, there's a strong group of hawks who look at the exact same situation and see a totally different and much more inflationary future. Leading that charge is Catherine Mann. Her warning is basically this: as the world economy fractures, as supply chains get rerouted, the whole system just becomes less efficient. And, a less efficient world is a more expensive world. It's as simple as that. So the core belief for these hawks is that as globalization kind of unwinds, as trade becomes less integrated, the basic costs of just making stuff and shipping it around the globe, they're going to go up. This means more supply shocks, more volatility, and just this constant upward pressure on prices. And this right here is the heart of the battle inside the bank. It's a fundamental clash of worldviews. You've got the Doves, who see the main problem as weak demand, and then you have the Hawks, who are pointing to rising costs from these fragile supply chains. They're both looking at the same event and coming to completely opposite conclusions. It's fascinating, really. So to really get why this debate matters so much, we have to take a quick look at just how fragile the UK economy is right now. I mean, the Bank of England is basically trying to walk a tightrope. First up, let's talk growth. The bank's own forecast for 2025 is, well, a pretty meager 1.25%. Let's be honest, that's basically stagnant. And an economy that isn't really growing is incredibly vulnerable to any kind of global shock, like, say, the kind that new tariffs might cause. Now for the other side of the puzzle, inflation. As of September, it's stuck at 3.8%. Now, yeah, that's way down from its peak, but the problem is it's being incredibly stubborn. It just doesn't seem to want to fall any further. And this is the number that keeps them up at night. Their official, legally mandated target for inflation is just 2%. So when you see those two numbers side by side, you really get it. Inflation is still running at nearly double the official target. And that explains exactly why the hawks are so jittery about anything that could risk pushing prices back up. So look, this isn't just some theoretical debate for economists in an ivory tower. No way. This disagreement translates directly into a real-world division over one of the most important decisions for the economy: what to do with interest rates. And you can see that division in black and white right here. The bank's last big decision to cut interest rates back in August, it passed by the slimmest possible margin. I mean, a 5-4 vote. It doesn't get any tighter than that. That razor-thin vote tells you everything you need to know about how deep this disagreement runs, and that creates real uncertainty. It makes it incredibly difficult for businesses, for investors, and frankly, for anyone with a mortgage to predict what's coming next. Okay, so let's bring this all home. Why does this debate in a boardroom matter to you? Well, it's pretty simple. The winner of this argument will determine where UK interest rates go. If the doves are right and they decide to cut rates to support the weak economy, your mortgage payments could start to feel a little lighter sooner. But if the hawks win out and they keep rates high to squash inflation, well, those payments could stay painfully high for a lot longer. At the end of the day, the Bank of England is facing this immense challenge. You can think of it like they're trying to land the plane of inflation safely on the target. But that target is a moving aircraft carrier in the middle of a stormy, volatile global economy. And these new tariffs, they're like a sudden, powerful, and completely unpredictable crosswind, making that landing even trickier. And all of this leaves us with one final and really crucial question. In this new era, where the old rules of globalization seem to be breaking down, are our central banks kind of flying blind? Are they trying to navigate a completely new economic landscape with an old, outdated map? The answer to that is going to shape all of our finances for years to come.